Watch this.
This is not about choice. This is about transparency of funds.
Transparency and accountability. It's been the rallying cry for those opposed to public money for private schools. But apparently, those two things have become a problem for Idaho's largest public school, as closed-door questions about how the Idaho Home Learning Academy spends Idaho's money became public this week.
Oh, he's totally a fan. He watches the game from the sidelines.
They say the average athlete's career lasts about 5 years. Well, Blitz the T-Dog is not your average athlete. In fact, like all the other great ones, he's going to give it one more run. But the next dog up, yeah, he's waiting in the wings.
And Isla uses the flexibility and creativity with its operations to facilitate creativity and flexibility in meeting student needs. However, this flexibility and creativity comes in a policy and legal gray area.
Well, that gray, fuzzy area was the focus of a 3-hour joint legislative oversight committee hearing Tuesday at the Idaho State House. At question, whether families enrolled in the Idaho Home Learning Academy, or ILA, were using state funds appropriately for their child's education. You see, therein lies the gray area, because what's appropriate hasn't been well defined. We'll get to that, more on that in a moment. But first, a brief primer on virtual academies in Idaho. Idaho's first foray into online charter schools began in 2002 with the opening of the Idaho Virtual Academy. Like a regular school, there'd be no cost to attend. All you needed was a computer and an internet connection. Didn't have one? Well, back then, the Idaho Virtual Academy would provide both. The Virtual Academy got its charter from the Butte County School District with the goal of providing rural students access to a more enriched education. Programs not offered in their local schools because of a lack of money or staff.
Good morning, Chairman and members of the committee.
It was with that same intent, individualized learning, that the Oneida School District partnered with the Idaho Home Learning Academy back in 2016.
This enrollment data clearly demonstrates that Idaho families are voting with their feet. They are actively seeking more educational choice and greater parent involvement.
The Malad, Idaho-based online school began with about 200 students. But enrollment exploded during the pandemic, while brick-and-mortar schools closed or required masks. Today, based on enrollment, Isla is the largest single public school in the state. Here's how it works. Parents get an education savings account seeded with $1,700 to $1,800 per student to be used for educational expenses like books, software, or tutoring. Or, according to a 2023 Idaho Department of Education report, even chicken coops, rabbit hutches, kitchen supplies, or a digital piano. That money comes from Idaho taxpayers, siphoned off the normal state per-student spending. Well, when it comes to public spending, Haley Sweeten told the committee yesterday Idaho Home Learning Academy gets about $6,150 per student from the state, and that's based on the funding from the 2024-2025 school year. That's the first year Isla became a charter school. That's less than $9,800 Idaho spends per student. That's according to the number from 2022. So back to that meeting from yesterday. Back in March, several state lawmakers asked the Office of Performance Evaluations to look into Isla based on what they'd been hearing for years. For example, before it was a standalone charter school, Isla's enrollment numbers were attached to the Oneida School District, meaning Malad, which is a town of about 2,300 people, was getting school funding based on 8,000 students. So this group of lawmakers wanted to know more about the Academy's finances, its policies, its contracts, and how its students stacked up in academic achievement. Many might say this kind of scrutiny is overdue. Even the OPE director told the committee yesterday the state of Idaho has been giving parents money to support virtual education since at least 2007. And that was also the last time they looked at virtual school policies. Well, the OPE came up with a 129-page report that could serve as a cautionary tale for Idaho's upcoming school choice tax credit. Here's Joe Paris.
A deep dive into the Idaho Home Learning Academy, ILA, revealed gaps in accountability of tax dollars used by the state's largest virtual charter school. The in-depth report from the Office of Performance Evaluation was clear that no laws or codes have been violated, but existing rules need to be tailored for this innovative concept. It's a complex picture of a program that has proven popular with families but operates with questionable oversight, namely money distributed to families by contracted service providers for educational materials, activities, and services.
The schools are operating as they've been allowed. And so, as we heard today, from the governor's office to the state board to the Department of Education, everybody's going to roll up their sleeves and figure out how to ensure that taxpayer dollars are transparent and accountable to the public.
Senator Melissa Wintrow co-chairs the Joint Legislative Oversight Committee. They listen for hours about the findings, and some things stick out.
They're utilizing a funding formula or a way to fund the school that probably isn't quite appropriate.
Idaho's funding formula doesn't have a specific mechanism for virtual charter schools. Schools like Isla see benefits over brick and mortar schools on things like financial distributions based on attendance and distinctions between money allocated for full-time and part-time employees. It leads to a collection of questions about schools like Isla, but they are schools that parents and teachers say have been a major benefit for their students.
A lot of us that are teachers, we started as parents. So it's kind of a lot of us, we got into the teaching for them because we were passionate and we saw the program work.
Shelley Britton is a K-8 teacher with Isla.
Are you concerned, I guess, listening to the extended presentation that there could be oversights or things that would compromise Isla?
I was very nervous in the beginning. It seemed very negative, but I was encouraged by the end that we're all in this together. We're trying our hardest to find a happy medium of being able to answer all of these questions and make a way for this virtual education to still exist.
Isla leadership appreciates the questions.
Okay, tell us what we can do different. If we're doing something we shouldn't, tell us to do it different. If there's a way we can improve.
Dr. Terry Sorensen is executive director of Isla.
It's new. It's something new. And so we expect them to look at it and say, hey, this could be done differently, or maybe this piece could look better.
Haley Sweeten is set to take over the role of executive director soon, and they both understand questions about how taxpayer dollars are used. The report found purchases through the 3 service providers contracted with Isla that could be seen as taxpayer dollars used on non-educational expenses. As an evolving education option, Isla leaders say they are already working to make changes that ensure the virtual charter school is operating appropriately.
Oh, yes, for sure. We already have plans in place. We've every year, I think, gotten better at kind of putting those guardrails on and have plans for this coming year in our ESP contracts to make sure that those guardrails are even more clear and consistent across Isla and all 3 partners.
Some purchases in the report raised concerns. A paddleboard for a parent is already a popular talking point. OPE found purchases that certainly fall in the category of misuse of dollars, but other purchases drawing questions do need context in terms of a student's learning plan and goals.
They really look at what people are requesting. Does it tie back to the student's schedule? Does it tie back to their learning goals? And so that there's an educational connection to the items that they are using.
Because Isla parents will tell you, the school is uniquely positioned to help some students in ways that their local public school just isn't equipped to. Like a student struggling to learn in the traditional sense, skills like reading.
I'm gonna be honest, a teacher cannot do that for 30 students, but a parent can sit down and work with them for as much as time as needed and have that individual connection to go at that child's pace. And now she's in 7th grade and she still loves reading. Even though it's hard for her, she loves it. And
We do have these kids. We are supporting them with curriculum, with teachers. We have counselors, SPED services, 504. We have an amazing MTSS intervention program. And so these kids are getting served well.
Another topic. As a charter school, any unspent staffing funds can be redirected toward discretionary funds for Isla. Questions now center on how the law should handle the reality that Isla hired less than half of its allocated full-time equivalent staff in 2024-25. It's just what they needed, though, for that school year. It did result in a $16.1 million pool going to discretionary funding. Sorensen believes there needs to be a full conversation on the topic with lawmakers.
Funding's being used to educate kids. It's just in a different way. And she pointed out that most school districts, between 80 and 85% of their budget is those people components. If we don't have any leniency to use that money in any other discretionary way, again, you just did away with choice and innovation.
OPE's recommendations include developing a funding framework specific to virtual schools, addressing salary apportionment, attendance calculations, overhead costs, and unspent learning funds, while also setting clear parameters for supplemental learning funds, including defining acceptable uses. It's clear that Idaho law just was not specifically written with the innovation of virtual charter schools in mind.
Policy gray area. And we have always worked with the state to stay within it, but yes.
I like that exactly. We're playing a game with rules that don't apply to the game, and we're trying, right? And that's what I'm hoping that yesterday we made connections so that legislators will reach out and include us in decisions because, like she said, we are the biggest virtual school. We have experience and we're willing to adjust.
How have we constructed the law to ensure that those tax dollars are going out in a transparent way and fairly, right? We scrutinize our public school districts to the max. And so it is essential that everybody's treated fairly and that if we have multiple options, so be it, but they have to be fair and they all have to be accountable to the same taxpayers.
It's all about balance. It's finding rules that will direct, but also that won't restrict so much that will make it not worth it for these families, because then they'll not have the support of what we offer, and that would be sad as well.
And Idaho's governor did weigh in on this in the OPE report, saying there's an obligation to be responsible with taxpayer dollars, and he wants to keep an eye on these supplemental learning expenses and also tracking academic performance. He says that this is something the legislature needs to take a look at and make sure there are statutory safeguards that are consistent with Idaho law. And Brian, there are also some other questions about things like grades and test scores. The OPE report, for example, talked about how some metrics are lower than what would be seen in other schools. However, it was identifying that a lot of this is the first-year students and on the take-up of going from the classroom to this virtual academy. It's kind of where they saw some gaps, and that is something that Isla, speaking with their leadership, they're glad that OPE pointed this out so they can work on that. One more thing I did want to mention, too, is that money given to these education service providers that aren't spent, it didn't revert back to the state. It's something that the education service providers held on to that money.
That's
so it's
the
a major
question I was going to ask you. Is these service providers, these vendors, have also come under scrutiny in other states based on how they operate?
Right, and that is one thing that the law just doesn't cover. So there was criticisms of, well, they're just holding on to this money. And yes, you could argue maybe someone should have made a call and figured this out, but there was no mechanism to do that.
Okay, so during this House Bill 93, when we passed this school choice tax credit bill, and we've heard this whole thing, the parents are they're the ones who should be holding people accountable, and they should be one accountable. When it comes to what's allowed under that, I mean, how do we know those rules are set up for that program?
It's a great question, and when I talk to lawmakers who, some of them, on background, they say that, like, we need to keep an extra eye on this because if we're going to audit education dollars, it needs to be equal. So this type of looking at this program is something that is good in terms of taxpayer dollars, and everyone seems to agree we need to come to the table and figure it out. At the same time, though, Brian, you have folks that say these are not public taxpayer dollars, these are tax credits, so they say it's a different type of accountability.
Speaking of that, there's also with these vendors, points are allowed, and then parents are getting reimbursed for those points, so basically getting cash twice because of that. There's a lot to sort out through that, and hopefully we'll see some of that addressed the legislative session. All right. Thanks, Joe. There's an old saying in sports, Father Time is undefeated, meaning age eventually catches up to every athlete, leading to a decline in performance eventually, regardless of how great they were at their peak. All of that is true, of course, unless you're talking about the T-Dog at Boise State. For nearly a decade, Blitz has outrun fans and football players. He's cheered for both the Boise State and worked for them, both the Boise State football team and the Boise Hawks. And this furry legend announced his retirement during senior night. But guess what? He's decided he's back for one last game in the Mountain West title game that happens against UNLV on Friday. Hunter Funk learned about the dog who has carried this legacy and who will take his place.
On the blue, the noise hits you first. The crown, the cannon. And somewhere in that chaos comes the bark. But after several seasons, the dog making that bark will change.
Blitz has a wonderful lineage. Cowboy Cole was his dad. He grew up kind of side by side with him for his first few years, which is awesome. I think Cole was 11 when he passed, and Blitz was just over 3 years old at the time.
Unlike his dad, Blitz won't stay on the job that long, and that's on purpose.
We wanted to make sure Blitz has, a few years to just hang out on the couch, get to spend time with his family, because I've been taking him a lot over the last 5 years, and he's got 2 kids at home who really love and adore him, and we want to keep him out while he's healthy.
But that's not to say Cowboy Cole should have stopped fetching a minute sooner.
Makes me want to cry. It was a really beautiful time in our lives, and it was really great to be able to do that with him, because he absolutely, he lived for retrieving. And then when we started going to Boise State games, it was just like he took it 120%, and he absolutely loved it. I mean, just pulling up to Boise State, he would get amped up. He knew what was going on.
Cowboy Cole, a rescue, left behind quite the legacy. After successfully trying out for the Boise Hawks, then getting noticed enough to make it on the blue turf with the Broncos, the T-Dog job was born.
And he thrives off of the crowds of people. The more people cheer, the more amped up and excited he would get. So it was just, like I said, a perfect combination.
A perfect combo that now lives on in Blitz. Blitz, just like his dad, doesn't just hear the fans, he answers them.
We taught him when the crowd is cheering, that's the appropriate time to be making noise on his end. And when the crowd's a little bit more silent, then we try to keep him calm.
Wait, so he will cheer with fans?
Oh yeah, as soon as someone starts clapping, he is go.
So he's practically a fan himself, too.
Oh, he's totally a fan. He watches the game from the sidelines. When people try to get pictures of him on the sidelines, I always have them stand facing the field, because he will just, he is so in tune with the game. And as soon as there's a big cheer, the cannon goes off, he knows it's his turn.
And fans love him for it. Even when they tried to beat him in a race, college kids couldn't beat him. He ran so fast, he got the Idaho Secretary of State to get a new nickname, Fell McGrain. Though Rob Gronkowski seems to be among the few to beat him, Blitz has truly lived out his name. But that dynasty doesn't end with his retirement. Next to take over is Bourbon, his 6-year-old half-sister, who's been in training since she was a puppy.
But for about the last 2 years, we knew she'd be the one taking over, so we've been getting her on as many practices as possible. She's also been to the last few games so that she can get used to the energy of the crowd, and she also seems to feed off of it. She's not quite as vocal as he is about it, but when she's watching him retrieve on the sidelines, she's just, egged up and ready to go.
It's a strong family legacy that Cowboy Cole's owner says is remarkable to see continue to get carried on.
Well, all my coworkers call me grandma, because I'm they're my grandkids, so fur kids, yeah.
I was gonna say, these are all your babies.
Yep.
I mean, really?
Yep.
Yeah.
I've seen all of them grow up from the time they were born, so yeah. It's wild.
And after the game on Friday, you will see Blitz for about a month during Boise Hawks next season, but then full-time retirement, walks, hikes, kids at home, and no more sprinting on the wet turf.
It's a good thing they wear the bandanas,
yes,
because they have names on them, because otherwise you wouldn't be able to tell them apart.
I gotta tell you, editing this story was probably one of the most challenging things. I'm like, okay, wait, she gave me this one, and she gave me this one. I promise you I got it right. But yeah, it was really difficult.
Okay, like the bats at the Boise Hawks, how many T's do they go through in a season at Boise State from him biting down on those?
Okay, I need to ask that question, because because it's probably got to be a lot, because the baseball bats we've heard many times.
Right.
Sometimes they get a little excited and bite down, leave some dents.
Yeah, got to hold on to those things while you're running.
Exactly.
Well, Friday night, last time to see him.
Yeah.
He'll be missed. But again, next one coming up.
Yeah.
Next man up.
Yeah,
All right,
Bourbon.
next dog.
Next woman.
Woman, female dog.
Up.
We'll be right back. Things could look a little different at schools across the West Ada School District if new campus safety plan is approved. Meanwhile, with many Idaho families still waiting to receive their SNAP benefits, a popular burger joint in McCall is going to keep offering free meals to those who need it, at least for now. Here's Richard Rodriguez with today's 411.
The West Ada School District is proposing two major changes to its school safety plan. The district wants to hire, quote, armed campus sentinels, which would be certified current or retired police officers hired directly by the district. The sentinels will work alongside school resource officers, creating a layered safety model across 59 schools. The district also wants to give every employee wearable alert badges. With the push of a button, staff members will be able to call for help or trigger a lockdown in the event of an emergency. The district will present the full plan to the school board next Monday and is asking the public to weigh in through their online survey. An Idaho restaurant will continue providing free meals for SNAP recipients. The owners of My Father's Place in McCall will serve those meals through January 1st. Early last month, we showed you how the restaurant started offering food to help fill the SNAP gap during the government shutdown. Those in need can go to My Father's Place, show their SNAP card, and get a delicious meal. Light the World giving machines are now at their new home in Indian Creek Plaza in Caldwell. The vending machine style donation machines let you give the gift of giving by purchasing items that go directly to local and global charities. Launch comes with some star power too. Cast members from series The Chosen were part of the ribbon cutting celebration last night. Organizers say the machines will stay in Caldwell for several weeks. And that's the 411 on the 208. I'm Richard Rodriguez.
All right, let's get to your comments here on this Wednesday. Chuck in Boise says he would be shocked if we did not find any corruption and waste in these private schools with no oversight over our tax-paying dollars. It's kind of what we're headed toward with our tax credit. At least that's the complaint of some. Meanwhile, Jack in Boise says, I wonder how many of the folks receiving tax credits will vote yes on public school levies. Well, not too many vote yes now, so I'm sure that number will drop down once those get approved. With respects to Isla, does this not fall under the purview of the State Board of Education? Where is the oversight, asked Gary. Well, they are given that authority under the Constitution, but it's the legislature that gives basically the State Board of Education their marching orders. They tell them what they can and what they cannot cover or control. They also control the purse strings. So that's why they're going over this again to figure out who is in control. We'll see you tomorrow.
Continue with us and watch free now on the KTVB Plus app everywhere you stream.